Here. So over the last few days, I have been talking a lot about the lumber industry, talking about some of the things that I am witnessing from the retail side of the industry. I do retail sales for a living. Now I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I know a lot of loggers, mill operators, truck drivers, other distribution hubs, other retailers. There's really no corner of this market that I can't see, and I have been trying to report for quite some time on this channel about how it is that the inventory is being depleted of lumber. Now, many people don't really look at the lumber industry and the fashions that I do because there's really no way of like observing what it is that's taking place within the lumber industry if you're not like boots in the ground. Like, there's not a lot of articles out there. I've shared a few down in the description, and I'll try and find some more to share with you guys. But I found this list that I have put together talking about the mill curtailments, and I thought I would share this list with you guys just to show you how devastated this market really is and how long it's been going on. So now this is just from 2024. I mean, we're not counting the things that had happened prior to 2024, which was, a lot of information could be talked about there. We're just going to start in 2024 talking about mill curtailments and literally like shutdowning of those mills altogether. Now, January of 2024, several mills faced indefinite curtailments or permanent closures, including Paper Excellence, Canada's Catalyst Crofton Mill, West Fraser's Timber Fraser Lake Facility, and West Fraser Sawmill in Florida. So we're not talking like just up in Canada. We're talking from Canada all the way down to the southern part of the United States. It goes on to say, talking about January, that Hampton Lumber, Graphic Packaging, Soundview Paperwork Industries, and West Rock also reported closures and layoffs in various locations. Now, I know a lot of people will look at that and say, well, that's not lumber, that's paper, but it's part of the fiber industry. And now when you think about fiber, you think, okay, trees is essentially the fiber. Now, whether or not it gets turned into paper or if it gets sawed into lumber, ultimately that's the forestry industry, the timber industry. And although that may be somewhat different from the lumber industry, it's just showing signs of the times. Now, to think about this for just a minute, if you have a drop in the demand for pulp, then the loggers themselves really don't have any place to send all that fiber. Now, you do have some demand coming from the lumber industry, which does produce some pulp, but ultimately, if the pulp demand falls, then so does the demand for the loggers to actually log those trees down. So understand that the pulp industry is just as important to the timber industry as lumber is, right? There's two different industries happening there, even though it's all under like the idea of the forest industry. And a lot of times people will hear timber and think lumber, or think lumber and think timber. That's not the same thing. There's a whole paper industry that's also involved in it. That was January of 2024. February of 2024, curtailments and closures continued with Domter at their Ashdown Mill, Mohawk Fine Papers in Oregon, and Algena Wood Products in West Virginia, resulting in significant job losses. Goes on to March of 2024. Pyramid Mountain Lumber in Rossburg Forest Products closed facilities in Montana. Nine Dragons Paper Mill in Maine also laid off employees. Now, we reported on the Pyramid Mountain Lumber closure when that happened, but the Nine Dragons, that's actually a Chinese company that is one of the biggest paper producers in the entire world, operating out of the Northeast. And if I remember right, they just took over that facility just a few years ago, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Going on to May of 2024, Canfor announced a permanent closure of their Polar sawmill and curtailed a production line at the Northwood facility. In July of 2024, Weyerhaeuser closed a mill in North Carolina. In August of 2024, Canfor announced the closure of 2 sawmills in British Columbia, Willamette Falls Paper Company and Ingevity also announced closures. I'm sorry. I butcher names so bad. I'm sorry, guys. And that was literally just the handful that I had come up with in 2024. Now, 2025, it continues onward. January, high fiber costs in the Nordics are predicted to force pulp mill closures. In February of 2025, International Paper announced a permanent closure of several facilities, including containerboard mills in Louisiana and recycling plants in Arizona. When you're going through a lot of these reports, like if you were looking for them yourself, you also have to think, like, a lot of times you will see a report of curtailment, and then like maybe 6 months later or a year later you'll actually see the shutdown of those mills. So it's almost like leading up to it, the curtailment first and then the closures. All right. April of 2025, Pixel Specialty Solutions announced the closure of a mill in Ohio. West Fraser Timbers Williams Lake Mill reduced its work week. Smurfit, that's a kind of Smurfit, West Rock closed a box plant in Oregon. International Paper shut down its Campty, Louisiana mill. In May of 2025, Georgia Pacific announced the closures of its Cedar Springs, Georgia pulp mill in August of 2025. In June of 2025, Canfor plans to close two sawmills in South Carolina. Mesta board shut down and production at a mill in Finland. So this is like, it's reporting all the way to Europe. And you have to think, like, the demand in the United States does affect the foreign production out there, because how much, like, you think about it, Canada puts a lot of lumber into the United States. And so if you have a problem with demand taking place in the United States, the British Columbia area is really sensitive to that, and they start shutting down almost immediately. July of 2025, Sappi Europe plans paper machine closures in Germany. Cascades announced the permanent closure of a manufacturing operations in Nigeria Falls. Matessa Tissue plans job cuts in Germany, and International Paper facility in Ohio is closing. So it just kind of goes to show that it's not just here in the United States. This is the demand going around the entire globe. And I have said it many times that you can look to lumber to see where the economic health is. If there is a lot of demand for lumber, then you could probably assume that there is a lot of demand going in the economy, like the economy is doing quite well. And lumber is a sign of that. But all things being equal, if you see the demand for lumber falling and seeing it significantly starting in back over a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, when you see this taking place, it's not the current circumstances that are creating it. Although they may be expediting the problem, we have to understand that this problem was starting many years ago, way before this current administration, way before the tariffs, way before all that stuff was taking place. The mill curtailments, the shutdowns were already happening. And to me, that is a sign of the times. That's a sign of the economic activity that is happening out there, or the lack thereof. So now when we think about ramping up demand or ramping up production from a increase in demand, we face a problem here within the timber industry that a lot of people, I do not think, have internalized into the rational circumstances that we now face. Because most people just think, we'll just fire up production just like that, right? Everybody just go back to work. But it doesn't quite work like that. When you think about, like, nationwide corporation, like a national builder, one that you hear building homes throughout many states, throughout the country, you think, okay, well, these people have a big corporation. They got all kinds of employees and CEOs and all kinds of, like, levels to this operation that are happening out there. And so when you think about building homes, well, you can go to one of the national home builders and say, okay, let's ramp up production. What is it that you need in order to ramp up production? Now, that kind of makes sense because they're this nationwide home builder, but there's no nationwide logger. There's only the dudes. Like, that small group of like, that team might be kind of big. A logging operation might have a lot of employees that work for that particular company, but for the most part, there's small operations, there's small businesses. There's just a handful of guys up there falling trees and hauling them off the hill. It's not like you have this nationwide builder that has all kinds of thousands of employees and CEOs and corporate offices and all that kind of stuff going on. You just have people who understand and know the game and know how to operate and do that business, but they're generally small time operations. I mean, they might have a lot of money and tied up in equipment and, trucks and shops or, just stuff like that. But again, ultimately, they're not like beyond just them, just a handful of people who have put out the contract to fall the trees and haul them off the hill. So when it's comes to like this sort of situation where the demand for lumber, the demand for pulp starts to fall, well, that's the loggers. That's the loggers' problem right there. If they fall those trees and have nobody to haul them to, then there's no point in cutting down the trees. There's no point in them being in business. Just like anybody, they want to fall trees, they want to cut trees and haul them to the mills or haul them to wherever ship that they're going to be sent overseas. Their whole job is to cut trees and take them down and haul them off the hill. And if there is no demand for it, they go out of business. You can't just fire that production back up. It's just not going to happen that way. Like, you can take companies that are already existing and try to expand them, but to get people to just go out there and fire up a logging company, it doesn't work like that. Most logging companies are small-time operations, and once they shut down, they shut down. Now, you might find where an individual might have a log truck and might find, a yarder or something like that and have just a little bit of equipment and start as, logging operation up. But for the most part, this isn't something that can just instantly be fired up and all of a sudden just massive production taking place from it. That's something that has to be built up over time. And this is where we're going to start facing the issues when the demand for lumber starts to increase. It's not just the mill operations that are the problem. You have to think if the mills aren't buying the product from the loggers, then the loggers are going to go out of business too. And they don't have the room. Like, this is where I think a lot of times, like, nationwide corporations or like a nationwide national builder can somewhat weather the storm. Right? They can get through the bad times or, lay off employees, cut back on operations, and may not shut down. But logging operations, if they're not working every single day, well, then they're out of business. And they're just going to have to shut down altogether if they cannot fire back up and get back into production right away. What did I get here? I just got a message from somebody. Hold on one sec. Let me see what the message was. Oh, it's the family out on the train going down to get rid of all the isn't that sweet? All right, cool. All right, moving on. I think Kirk has a crush on you, Brody. All right. Walrus. Okay. If Trump really was on the island, he would rat on everyone else. Are you guys talking about superficial stuff that doesn't make any sense to anything that's reality? Like, I mean, I understand that the issues that we're facing there are quite critical, but honestly, like, what is it that you choose to benefit from any of that? Like, I understand that it's going on out there, but I'm going to take my time, my energy, my thoughts, and I'm going to put it towards something that is actually going to benefit me, or at least to help me to position myself to benefit me. I don't know what else I would be messing with, and, All right. Telling the truth triggers Brody. You already know I don't care about rate cuts. Said it 2 or 3 times. All right. Home sales are in decline due to economy. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's really where, like, I mean, to me, the home sales, like the transactions, that's it. That's where the crash in the housing market is. It's in transactions. Everybody wants it to be in a particular way. Like, they want it to be prices. Well, when prices come down, that's the crash in housing market. But that's not the case. Like, right now, that's not happening in the fashion that people want it to be. Like, they want the housing market crash to be a price drop. The housing market crash is in transactions. Now, whether or not you want it to be in prices or you want it to be in something else, it is occurring in transactions. And that's where the housing market crash really is. People just want to ignore that to be the crash. And people say there's a housing market crash coming. I'm like, it's not coming. It's here. It's right now. It's taking place within transactions. And people want to say, well, when do the prices move? And it was like, they may not move in the fashion that you want them to. right? People have this expectation that there's going to be something similar to the great financial crisis, even though we're not in the same economic environment as the great financial crisis. And when they try to say it's worse than that, what they are trying to say is that the dollar failure will soon take place, driving the house prices down. Now, if you are anticipating a complete dollar failure, good luck with that. I don't anticipate a complete dollar failure anytime in the near future. Will it eventually fail? Absolutely. And will they get their wish of the prices of homes falling? Maybe that will occur at that time. But at this point, what I am saying is that you are going to find the ever increasing amounts of separation happening between the rich and the poor. And there's no better way of observing that than through property ownership. This is the unfortunate circumstances we now face. And it's nothing that anybody can do about it. And if you think that there is something that somebody can do about it, you're going to be sitting around wishing and hoping and dreaming for the rest of your life. There's underlying economic forces that don't allow, that's going to prevent. It's just simply impossible for anybody to fix. They can't fix it. That's the problem. People anticipate that there's going to be some sort of fix. And by anticipating there's going to be some sort of fix, they cannot possibly think about what it is that they need to do in this current environment that's not going to be fixed. So wasting your time thinking about other things out there that are superficial or don't really impact your life in any kind of real way is going to be damaging to you. Right? I mean, it could be entertaining. I mean, in that sense, I mean, I guess people want to be entertained. If that's what you're doing, cool. But if you think that's information that's going to benefit you, it's not. Right? It's not. Like, I mean, what is it that's going to do to give you the ability to get a return on investment? Moving on. My portfolio has been the same since 2008. I am just telling people to be prepared. Rate cuts in September, reports cuts coming in September, 93%. Yeah, but that's what they said back in 2003 when they were talking about, at the end of 2003, talking about all the rate cuts that were coming in 2024. They had predicted 100% there was going to be like massive rate cuts, like there was no alternative. There was going to be just nothing but rate cuts coming in 2024. They did 3 rate cuts. They cut 1 percentage point. Right? There was hardly any rate cuts that took place in 2024, although all the polls, all the market predictions, all this other stuff had massive rate cuts coming in 2024. It didn't happen. I don't believe any of that stuff. It's all propagandized information in order to push the elevated inflation expectation to raise the neutral interest rate. And I can say that over and over again because that's what's happening. Like, I don't even have to imagine that to be the case. That is what's taking place. There is elevated inflation expectations. The inflation rate itself is moderately above 2%. The expectations in the future are quite elevated, which raises that neutral interest rate. And if you think about it in this fashion, in the low neutral interest rate environment, it's absolutely lining up exactly the way that I thought it was going to. Now, I didn't know it was going to occur like this, but I did believe that the neutral interest rate was going to move ever higher to the Fed funds rate while the Federal Reserve essentially was standing still. I did a video on this over 2 years ago. There's a great edited video that somebody had done where they added a bunch of graphics into that narrative, into that video that I had done. It's like, it's obvious to me that's what's taken place because I haven't changed anything about my tune. And when it comes to the monetary policy, like I've said it over and over again, elevated inflation expectation, pulling the neutral interest rate higher, getting ever closer to the Fed funds rate, making the economy less restricted. This is what we're facing. And it is driving a separation between the rich and the poor. The inequality is getting worse on account of it. Like, none of it, like, I'm not doubting any of that. Like, it's all happening. All right. America will stay strong if she gives Israel everything they need. All right, let me cruise back up here a little ways. You can't print lumber. No, you cannot. I may have muted stimulation on the economy. Rate cuts will make everything worse as far as prices. I don't know. I mean, you think about it, to me, the idea of a rate cut itself is not the important discussion. Like, to me, like, I don't even think about, like, I study this stuff all day long. I study monetary policy all day long. I look at supply chain breakdowns and in conditions all day long. Like, this is what I do all day long. And when somebody talks about interest rate cuts, I'm thinking, man, that is not the place you should be focusing. That is not, like, to me, that is not what I am interested in listening to or paying attention to or anything else out there. It's not a matter of the rate cuts. It's the constant communication about it. Think about it. They hardly move at all. The interest rate cuts is not the effective tool. It's the communication about it. Think about it. They hardly move at all. Most of the time, they are literally standing still. When they do move, it's very quick and very short timing, right? Fastest rate increases in the history of time, very quick, right? It's because they don't want to actually move interest rates. They want to talk about it because talking about it is the effective tool. In fact, it's more about expectations than anything else. I mean, we go over this over and over again. I even had a gentleman just recently say that I was like, he says that the Federal Reserve is reacting to the people and reacting to market conditions. And I'm like, no, they are creating expectations. How many people are just discussing the rate cuts going into the future? That is what they have done. They have created this expectations and then they manipulate that. And it works so well. Like, I know people might hear that for the first time and be very confused by what it is that I'm trying to say here, but you have to understand this is what the Federal Reserve has communicated, right? This isn't just me who is making this stuff up. This is the Federal Reserve who has communicated this stuff time and time again, talking about how it is that they are using their words as opposed to their actions to conduct monetary policy. I mean, I just love bringing up this Philip Jefferson speech from, when was this? This wasn't even that long ago, May 13th of 2024. So a little over a year ago. And in this speech, right, it's titled Communicating About Monetary Policy. Literally, communicating about monetary policy. To think about it, this is an FOMC voting member of the FOMC. This is a person who is in charge of monetary policy. When people say Jerome Powell is in charge of monetary policy, they have no clue that the Federal Open Market Committee has 11 other voting members to it, and one of them is this guy named Philip Jefferson, who wrote this speech May 13th of 2024, and this is what he had to say in it. In 1981, Karl Brunner, the Swiss monetary economist, called central banking an esoteric art and lamented central banks' quote, inherent impossibility to articulate its insights in explicit and intelligible words and sentences. At the time, central banking wisdom dictated that monetary policy should say as little as possible. Some researchers of that vintage tried to rationalize this, quote, secrecy through the notion that monetary policy would be particularly effective if it surprised the markets. That is the way that the majority of the people look at the Federal Reserve. They think that the Federal Reserve is conducting themselves in a surprising way to the markets. That is not accurate. He goes on to say this, expectations became a focal point in academic and policy circles with the emergence of the new Keynesian models in the 1990s. This is when everything started to change. As a framework for monetary policy, in these models, aligning the expectations of decision makers, that's you and me, we're the decision makers, aligning the expectations of the decision makers in the private sector, again, that's us, with those of the policy makers, that's the FOMC, right? So aligning our expectations with those of the policymakers produce superior economic outcomes. They are manipulating your expectations. That is their job. That is their tool. That is the whole objective. Manipulating expectations is gaslighting at its finest. Mike Woodford, one of the developers of the new Keynesian model, put it this way: not only do expectations about policy matter, but very little else matters. And that's why I just don't fall for it. They are not reacting. They are creating expectations within the markets that people are reacting to. It's literally their words that are guiding the markets. Yeah. And everybody who sees it differently is missing it. Like, it's not me who's saying it. This is Philip Jefferson, the dude who's voting on monetary policy, who is telling you. But people just say, oh, no, that's not true. And I'm like, you know, nobody else knows this, right? Like, this is not discussed in the mainstream media. There is no other economist who talks about this. There's nobody else on YouTube who's brought this up. I am literally the only one. So Philip Jefferson wrote this speech back in May of 2024 so that he could absolutely confuse the uneducated economists and the handful of people who are watching his channel. That was the goal? I mean, is that like literally what people think? That they're lying to me? Me personally? And the handful of people that I'm sharing the information with? We're being lied to by the Federal Reserve considering nobody else is talking about it? Why would they do that to us, the uneducated economists in the YouTube channel? That doesn't make any sense, does it? So if this information is not being shared with any other YouTuber, from any other YouTuber, no mainstream media article, certainly not the economists that are out there, and it's the only person who's sharing it with you is the uneducated economist, and I'm giving you direct evidence and location of where it is that you can find this information, don't you think that this might be a little bit closer to the truth than anything else? Just saying. Right? I mean, all these other people out there who are talking about hyperinflation and the Fed lost control and they don't know what they're doing and they're reacting to the markets and all this other stuff. And I'm like, you know, guys, I think you might be wrong there, considering that they said that they were going to be doing this to you over a year ago. And if you really go back to John Williams' speech or even Ben Bernanke's speech, this is going on for decades. They built and developed the tools in order to manipulate the expectations of the market, and they have figured that out through the mainstream media. It's not hard to see it once you see it. The jobs numbers were manipulated, so inflation is being also. Even if the house prices drop to the point at which the middle class wages can barely meet the purchase criteria, are not realizing the sheer volume of the corporate liquidity to sweep the inventory. Game over. I'm trying to tell you people that it's done. Like, the idea of the average working class individual person with your standard day job to buy a house, have the American dream, have that, you know, single income or even a, you know, wife income, you know, a couple's income, that day is gone, guys. It's not coming back. And it's sad. I understand. There's people who are wishing and hoping and dreaming and praying for that sort of life and to be, you know, to exist for them. It can exist, but you're not going to get it through the standard means. You're not going to get it through your day job. You're not going to get it through a politician's efforts. You're going to have to get it through your own efforts of being able to go out there and pursue excellence in a way that is going to bring you the abundance. I don't know how else to explain it, but you have to provide something that is helpful and useful to this world, and the world will provide you with the abundance from it. But you have to believe it exists. And if you don't believe it exists, then you will be expecting somebody else to do something about it, and there's nothing that anybody can do. Literally nothing that they can do. There is nothing. So if you're waiting around for that day to occur, you're going to wait in misery because it's never coming. Okay? Just once you understand it, now you can do something about it. And that's the point. Just accept it for what it is. There's no fixing this problem that you face, that we face together. We all faced it. I seen it. I know exactly what it is that I was facing when I was 40 years old, completely broke, had nothing going on, no way of like figuring out what it is that I was going to do to try and acquire the things that I needed in my life. And I said to myself, man, you know, you might want to start by giving up the alcohol. You know, maybe just, you know, might start there. Once I gave up the alcohol, I realized, man, I have been chasing pleasurable experiences most of my life, and that has been the damage that I now face. Maybe I should just pursue excellence. And so that's what I did. I focused in on chasing excellence, and I pursue excellence constantly as much as I can, and I get rewarded for it. Now, granted, it is hard and it's difficult, and not everybody is going to have that sort of motivation behind it when you're at 40 years old and thinking to yourself, man, am I really going to raise my kids this way? Pretty soon you find motivation beyond just you. You know that there is possibilities, there's capabilities. It's out there somewhere, right? Everybody can do it. You just have to believe you can do it first off. If you don't believe you can do it, then if you don't believe that you can, then you won't. Right? If you can't do it, you won't do it. Oh my God, I'm listening to an alcoholic. Yes, you are. I'm your daddy. You are definitely listening to a recovering alcoholic. I have said this so many times on this channel. I haven't drank for 9 years, almost 10 years. I don't even know exactly how long it's been, somewhere close to 10 years. I buy grass-fed beef from Walmart. They recently raised the price from $5.86 a pound to $6.26 a pound. All right, I can't drink, medical reasons. I have to be careful when it comes to food, as big drug as any in my book. Money is an exponential curve. Sadly, salaries are not. Well, they are sort of, since raises are typically in percentages, but the rate typically much lower. And when do rate deltas matter? End of the curves. See, this is where I start to lose it when it comes to understanding like how it is that people are looking at wages and money and income and their capabilities within this economy. And see, I think about it, it was just like my wages have never been enough. Right? Never in the history of time have I ever worked a day job where it seemed like the wages were enough. Never, no matter how much I made. And so I came to the understanding that there will never be enough. There is never enough money working for somebody else. I don't care how much you get paid per hour. You can get paid an ungodly amount per hour, right? But it doesn't matter. You only have so many hours in a day in which you can work. You're limited. That's it. That's as many, you're limited to however many hours you can work, regardless of how many hours or how much dollars you're getting paid per hour. Now, if you can figure out ways to make money while you are sleeping, I don't care how much money it is. I don't care how little amount of money that is. That is the way that that is what you need to work towards, right? Because now you can do things that are leveraging your time. You can make $100 an hour working for your day job that is limited, while at the same time leveraging your time to be making money doing something else like a YouTube video or a side hustle that is doing online sales, something that is passive in your time. All right? Being in a flow constantly, the constant state of flow, this to me is the position in which that most people would want to be in. All right? The problem that most people do is that they get into the flow and then they immediately let the flow go right past them through debt issuance or, spending it on good times or doing whatever. They're never able to hold on to the flow. Now, if you can step into the flow and then cut back on your expenses, now you're gathering the flow. It's coming right to you. See, many people say, man, what do I do to invest in? I'm thinking, do you have debt? I mean, if you got a credit card, car loan, student loan debts, a house, like any kind of debt, if you got debt, you got all the investment in the world you need to deal with. Just pay off your debt. There's no better investment than paying off that debt. And by paying off the debt, the moment that you do, you're an instantaneous flow. Like, how easy is that? Like, people say, man, how do I get in a flow? And I'm like, you got debt? Yes, well, then pay off the debt. No better investment than paying off your debt. And as soon as you are done with the debt, you're in instantaneous flow. It's easy as that. Most people don't look at it that way. They want to look at their debt as a burden and then figure out how it is that they can invest to take that investment and pay off their burden. They're thinking about it wrong, right? Because now you have to have an investment that is going to be paying beyond that of the interest that you are paying on your debt. That is very difficult. Most credit card debts, you'll never do that. The credit card debt is much higher than you'll ever get in as far as a return on your investment, unless you are really risky, right? And just happen to pick out that that crazy penny stock that did so well, that crazy crypto that did so well. Most of the time, that's not going to work out very well. But if you take all your money and you start paying off your credit cards, your student loan debts, your, whatever debts that you have out there, one day you're going to find that that debt is paid off and it's instantaneous cash flow. You continue to live the way you were and you start putting that towards a return on your capital investments, man, you're going to find that life is a lot easier than you had ever anticipated. Most people just don't feel it that way. And they're like, man, I don't want to sit around being like bored my entire life. I want to actually enjoy my life. And I'm like, yeah, okay, go for that. What are you going to do when you're old? Try and figure out what it is that you're going to do for retirement. What are you going to do to try and make ends meet when you can barely make the rent? What are you going to do? Right? You're going to look back on your time and say, man, I wish I hadn't partied so much and I wish I had saved some of that money. That's what you're going to say. I know, because at 40 years old, that's exactly what I was telling myself. All right, are we done yet, guys? How time is it? Oh, I got about another 5 minutes here. All right. I guess they will never stop. Some unpopular truth right now. I am going to tell you the most uncomfortable things ever. Right? I am not going to sugarcoat it, and I am going to tell you straight up what it is, right? Because I had to figure it out for myself. And part of that was coming to the realization that I screwed myself up. I did it to myself bad, and I was taking down people with me. Right? My family was relying on me, and I was screwing up bad. Right? I had to take responsibility and ownership of that. You know how difficult it was to admit it to myself? You know how difficult it was to admit it to the family, to everybody around me, that I screwed up that bad and that I needed to do something about it to change the way that everything was going on? Right? It wasn't easy. It's like, the hardest part, I think, for most people, especially when it comes to just facing your problems, is just admitting it. It's just like, to take the embarrassment, to just admit it. I screwed up bad, right? And I mean, I can't apologize for it any more than I have. I can't change anything that I did from the past. The only thing I can do is conduct myself in a better fashion going forward. That's it. That's the only thing I got. I can't make up excuses. I can't try to sugarcoat it. I can't try to do any of those things if I'm going to try and make it in this world. I have to own up to it. Those were mistakes, learn from them. And everybody has to face those things at some point. For me, it was really devastating to realize that I had compromised not only my health, myself, my family, the kids, everything. Like, what in the hell were you doing, man? So you realize it, you face up to it, and you face the facts, and you think, okay, man, maybe there is something that I can do with my world, with my existence, with what it is that I have going on here. And as people say, dude, you just go out there and tell people that they just need to, pick themselves up by the bootstraps or whatever. Man, 9 years ago, I was not doing well. It was a horrible spot. And as I move into what I feel is a much better position in life to not only take care of myself, but my family and everything else that I got going on in my world, when I think about what it is that I was doing in order to get here, man, this wasn't easy. And sharing the information with you wasn't comfortable at all. Right? But I know that it was helping some people out there. The more I was saying it, the more I was talking about it. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if there's anything that I can do out there, I can at least share my story. And this is it. This is the truth of it. You get it. And I mean, I'm not really hiding much that I could hide from you, right? I mean, I got some personal stuff that I try to keep personal, but for the most part, I've shared it with you. Everything that I got, All right. Thank God. And retired, you must buy your freedom in America. We could all be starving children in Palestine. I don't think about in that fashion. I'm not in Palestine, right? I'm not thinking about what it is that I could, like, starving children in Palestine. I don't think about that kind of thing. What I think about is what it is that I have going on right here, right now with me in my environment, right? Like, I can't deal with things that are going on in a foreign nation, and I cannot compare myself to other people, right? I can only compare myself to my past, to myself, and deal with my current circumstances. I can't deal with externals. I can't change the external. I can't compare myself to people who are not me, right? And so I don't think about things like that. Yeah, I know it exists and it's sad, and there's probably people out there who probably take it as a very passionate thing to go out there and help those other people. To me, I'm doing the best I can to help the people who are around me and the people who are listening. This is my effort. All right. The pictures will break your heart, and another reason why I don't look at them. What am I going to do? I mean, I might be able to help out a handful of people over there, but that's all I'm ever going to do, right? By doing this, by helping myself, by providing my family with a better way of existence, perhaps I can make my family, not make my family, I can't make them do anything. Put myself in a position in which that my family has the best opportunity for themselves, and by doing that, I am actually creating a better environment for everybody else out there. I can't change the external. I can only change what it is that I got going on. That's it. Yeah. I've been through the Suez 4 times. Wild over there. Quit my $200,000 a year job last year to do side hustle full time. Took home $57,000 last month alone. The American dream is still alive. I agree with you, $1 million dreams. Like, I agree. There is opportunity out there everywhere, and I think the problem that people are now facing is that they want it to be a particular way. I gotta go, but they want it to be a particular way. They want their day job to be enough. And I get it. Like, I want my day job to be enough. I wish it was. I wish that's all I had to do was just work 8 hours a day, go home, and everything would be awesome, right? Like, I could do all the things that I need to do. I can have all the retirement, the vacations, the college tuitions. I could do all the stuff. I mean, I wish it was that way. It's not. It's just simply not that way. And so I don't expect it to be that way. And since I can't change anything to make it that way, my wish and hope and dream for it really isn't much of a wish and hope and dream. It's an faded away like idea of, like, you know, possibility of pure imagination or something. I figured out what it is that I needed to do, and that was put out a lot of effort towards things that are far beyond just your day job. Without it, I don't know how else people are going to make it. Yeah. Alrighty, guys, this was fun. I got to go. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.